80 years have passed since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau German Nazi concentration camp. The 27th of January is also Holocaust Remembrance Day. The remembrance of these terrible events is crucial, as some media outlets are already forgetting who led the genocide during World War II. They increasingly rarely mention Poles among its victims, yet some 6 million of our compatriots perished during the war. Hell, the most frequently repeated word in the accounts of Holocaust survivors. In the German concentration camp Auschwitz-Birkenau, every day looked like this. From then on, when the crematoriums and gas chambers were ready, nothing more happened here except killing. Those who survived this hell are fewer and fewer. That's why the memory of what happened at Auschwitz plays a huge role.
Polska.
Poland takes care of these places precisely so that the memory will not perish, so that it will not be extinguished, so that it will always be remembered, so that through this memory the world will never again allow such a dramatic human catastrophe, or more precisely, a catastrophe of humanity. In addition to the most important participants in the ceremony, some 50 former inmates of German camps, delegations from some 60 countries and international organizations were also present at Auschwitz. Missing, however, were key American politicians. I think this is, unfortunately, the result of various negative statements made by Donald Tusk about Donald Trump, about the US administration. Among those in attendance were the presidents of France, Germany, Ukraine, the Prime Minister of Canada, and King Charles III. All emphasized these words: let us remember.
Remembering the evils of the past remains a vital task. And in so doing, we inform our present and shape our future.
This is very important because some people's memory of the events of World War II is selective. This is how German portal Deutsche Welle writes about the number of victims in a German concentration camp. According to reliable information, by the end of January 1945, the Nazis had murdered at least 1.1 million people here, mostly Jews, but also Roma and Sinti and members of other minorities. Omitted here is the fact that more than 70,000 Poles, who were the second largest group murdered, also perished at Auschwitz. Deutsche Welle not only omits Poles as victims, it also points out that the genocide was carried out by Nazis. But who are these Nazis? This question was clarified at a congress organized by TV Republica in Washington by Rabbi Botik Shmuley, directly naming those who carried out the Holocaust.
To ci podli Niemcy i oczywiście, muszę to wyjaśnić, to nie byli naziści, którzy dopuścili się Holokaustu. Naziści nie byli narodem, który spadł z kosmosu, z innej planety i zawładnął sercami Niemców.
Holocaust survivor Edward Mossberg also defended Poland's good name at every turn. He made sure the truth about the Holocaust was not misrepresented. I blame the German people for the Holocaust, especially the entire German nation, because they voted for Hitler. If they hadn't voted for Hitler, there would have been no Holocaust. These words were echoed by the head of the Prime Minister's office, Jan Grabiec, who, however, forgot one very important point. Telling Germans that they should forget their responsibility for the victims of World War II or Auschwitz is irresponsible and dangerous. No political interest or no business justifies this. Then why did Tusk renounce reparations? The answer to this question came from Donald Tusk in July during Polish-German intergovernmental consultations. Chancellor Scholz says openly, and this is the advantage of this meeting, that in a formal and legal sense the reparations, from Germany's point of view, are closed. Scholz then proposed the construction of a memorial house in Berlin. This is almost nothing, because in a specially prepared report on the losses suffered by Poland as a result of German aggression and occupation during World War II, the damage suffered by Poland was valued at more than 6 trillion zloty. It must be said that this element of our historical dignity and international policy has been absolutely surrendered, and it must be said clearly that Donald Tusk has done absolutely nothing in this matter. The issue of German genocide and blaming the Poles for these crimes has always aroused a lot of emotion. Our editorial colleague, the late Paweł Zareczny, recalled a situation he witnessed a few years ago like this. The old doctor was standing surrounded by a garland of children. These children are 6 years old, 8, 10, 12, and a girl with a small doll. And I think to myself, Jesus Christ, there is a nation that sent these children to the oven. And I think to myself, there are crimes we can't forgive. We can't. Well, I don't forgive. More than 200,000 children were murdered at Auschwitz.
This is the end of Russia and Syria. Their soldiers and equipment will finally disappear from the country. With God's help, we are the ones taking control of the base and securing state equipment that belongs to the Syrians. The Russians were initially forced by the rebels to retreat to their bases in Tartus and Humaimum, from which they could not get out. After several weeks of humiliation, they were forced to leave Syria immediately and completely. The military equipment, however, is not returning to Russia, but is being transferred to other countries that Putin's mercenaries are destabilizing, Libya and Mali. In fact, Russia treats Africa as one of the fronts of its war with the West, and such an area where at a relatively small cost, it can build its position as a supposedly global power. Russia's withdrawal from Syria is a result of the December coup in that country. Power was then lost to Kremlin ally Bashar Assad, who fled to Moscow and was replaced by Islamic rebels. In Syria, we have a new situation in which one regime has been replaced by another. After all, there is no question of democracy. It is not yet clear how the situation will develop. And there are plenty of problems, and enormous ones at that. Urgent and interrelated problems that could tear the country apart. Syria's economic situation is dire, and if nothing changes, there could be another coup and a new escalation of the bloody conflict. There are also reports of kidnappings and murdered opponents of the new Syrian government, former soldiers or members of Christian militias. In Damascus, we spoke with the wife of a former military officer of Assad's army. For security reasons, we cannot show her face. They told all the soldiers to report and promised security, but he left and the trace of him disappeared. We searched and checked everywhere. No one knows anything. No one has heard anything. We fear the worst, but I don't want to think about it. I want to believe he's alive. The uncertain situation means that only a few choose to return to Syria from refugee camps like this one in Lebanon. The vast majority are waiting for the situation to develop. Everyone hopes things will get better, and living conditions here are hard. But in Syria, they have nothing at the moment, neither home nor work. So everyone says yes, they will go back and rebuild Syria. Aid from Poland is also reaching this camp for Syrian refugees in Lebanon, organized by the Przyjacielnicki Foundation with the support of our viewers of Republica. This is Sadnayel camp. Here there are about 150 children in this school. They all live in these tents. Sometimes in Poland we have the impression that the Middle East is warm. Imagine temperatures close to zero and living in these tents. Hence this action which TV Republica has taken under its patronage. You have helped those children from refugee camps who have been living here for years. I'm Asma. My family is from Syria, from Raqqa, but I live here in the camp. My name is Abdel. I am from Idlib, and I have been here for 5 years. Good morning. My name is Esme. I'm from Homs and have been living here for 5 years. Aid from Poland is helping several thousand Syrian families survive, but it also gives hope that these children will someday turn living in makeshift tents without water or electricity into a real home in their country, Syria.
This was probably one of the shortest diplomatic wars in history. It lasted less than an hour. After Colombia refused to accept 2 planes with migrants deported from the United States, President Donald Trump threatened Bogota with sanctions and immediate tariffs on Colombian goods. In response, Colombia's president did not so much agree to accept the migrants as pledged to send a government plane to pick them up. State by state, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood. There is no problem tracking down suspects. Many have extensive records. Many officers know them well. This time it's Chicago and a massive operation targeting members of local immigrant gangs. Until now, the services have been essentially powerless. Thefts, burglaries, robberies, despite repeated arrests, it ended at best with brief arrests and return to the streets. Now an illegal immigrant's criminal record is his or her ticket back to his or her country of origin.
You're going to see the numbers steadily increase, the number of arrests nationwide as we open up the aperture. Right now it's concentrating public safety threats, national security threats. That's a smaller population. So we're going to do this on priority base, as President Trump's promised, but as that aperture opens, there'll be more arrests nationwide.
But while the services don't have a problem with the arrests themselves, they arise during the deportation process. Not all countries from which illegal immigrants come want them back. That's what happened in Colombia, where 2 US transport planes were sent last weekend. Authorities in Bogotá did not allow the planes to land, which drew an immediate response from President Trump. I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures. Emergency 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, the 25% tariffs will be raised to 50%. A travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. Visa sanctions on all party members, family members and supporters of the Colombian government. After this announcement, even though it was just a social media post, the Colombian president in less than an hour revoked the ban on deportees, apologized for the situation, and pledged to send his own plane to the United States to pick up the deported Colombians. The Colombian government, led by President Gustavo Petro, has prepared to facilitate the return of Colombians who were due to arrive in the country this morning on deportation flights. Colombia ratifies that it will maintain diplomatic channels of discussion to guarantee their rights, our national interests, and the dignity of our citizens. It seems that in Donald Trump's administration's actions, the slogan tariff is becoming not so much an element of economic policy as a tool for the White House to pressure uncooperative partners. We still have to wait and see what will happen in the long run, and whether the America First policy will actually become a reality, be generally applied, and produce the results promised by President Trump. We still don't know whether it will be just a negotiating tactic or whether it will be something that will radically change the paradigm of inter-American relations and relations on the American continent. Detentions of illegal immigrants have spread across the United States, including dependent territories like Puerto Rico. And while the detention of criminals does not raise much objection from local communities, questions are already being raised about the economic future of such places. If they are criminals, okay, but they are also working people. Everyone is afraid to go to work on construction sites, and it's these people who are pushing the country forward. According to estimates, there are about 12 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. The vast majority work in the black economy. Despite this, their contribution to the American economy is significant. Analysts have calculated that deporting all of them would end in a drop of up to 8% in American GDP. Hence, it is rather certain that a clean record may determine immunity, even for staying without the required authorization.
Another attack on infrastructure at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. An undersea fiber optic cable was damaged between the coast of Latvia and the Swedish island of Gotland. Services investigating the case believe it was not an accident, but probably a deliberate act. All the clues lead to Russia. The damage to an undersea telecommunications cable between Latvia and Sweden was reported by Latvian Prime Minister Evika Silina. Last night, interference with data transmission through the submarine cable was detected. We quickly determined that the damage is most likely caused by external interference. After receiving news of the damage, we checked the area of the potential breach. We found a vessel near the cable and conducted an inspection. The vessel suspected of breaking the cable had a damaged anchor. The vessel was sailing from a Russian port. The Bulgarian ship owner tried to explain himself. The ship was sailing in very bad weather conditions. A strong southwest wind was blowing. When the wind stopped, it appeared that the ship was dragging its anchor along the seabed. It is possible that it then caused this problem with the cable. In addition to the Latvian and Swedish navies, also NATO sent from Copenhagen, in the area of cable destruction, 2 ships, the French Croix du Sud and the Dutch Louis Metz.
We've got aircraft up there. We're very connected with all the maritime operations center in the area. And with this network, we aim to make sure that we know what's happening at sea. It all starts with...
The goal of Operation Baltic Sentry is to protect critical infrastructure after a series of incidents in which power cables, telecommunications links, and gas pipelines were damaged.
We hope we can deter them by our presence, but we also track them, we monitor them, and everybody who is wanting to undertake anything unlawful against any infrastructure should know it will not remain unseen and reaction will come.
On January 12th, The Swedes discovered damage on the Nordbalt cable, which connects Sweden to Lithuania. This was done by a Chinese ship, which had sailed from Russia and was stopped by the Danes in the Kattegat Strait in November after it allegedly damaged 2 telecommunications cables. In December, on the other hand, a power cable linking Finland and Estonia was ruptured. Experts say acts of sabotage are becoming regular, and all threads of investigation lead to Russia. Certainly, these are acts of sabotage which are aimed at lowering the level of security in particular areas of NATO, showing the public that they are not 100% safe. So we are talking about such a silent hybrid war, where the Russian side is trying to destabilize the situation. The Baltic countries, in cooperation with NATO, are looking for ways to prevent similar incidents. We will continue to take action against the Russian shadow fleet, including through new sanctions.
Ship captains must understand that potential threats to our infrastructure will have consequences, including possible boarding, impounding and arrest.
We'll continue to act robustly when critical infrastructure in the Baltic Sea.
In mid-January, NATO decided to send 10 ships to the Baltic. Their task is to patrol areas of undersea cables and other installations to deter potential sabotage perpetrators.